Good evening, and welcome to the special program of appreciation, education, and recognition of Italian American heritage and culture. Tonight is a very special night. We can support an artist of our borough, as well as the Queens Historical Society, which is a borough-wide society. My name is Patricia Sherwood, and I am the Vice President of Operations. Do I have to say more about operations, what we're doing? My main responsibility tonight is to guide you and introduce and help you discover the tapestry of the heritage woven by the Italian Americans in Queens. My first introduction will be to a city council member of the 19th district, covering Northern Queens. He has always had a long-standing commitment to the celebration of and the contributions of Italian Americans. I'd like you to meet Paul Vallone.
Right. Thank you so much, and buonasera a tutti, everyone. Welcome to our Italian American celebration tonight with the Queens Historical Society. We're going to have a wonderful evening. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Patricia. It is so wonderful to see that we are doing this tonight, especially as a couple weeks after Columbus Day. And we always love to give our shout out to the Italians this month. And as we honor Columbus Day and all of the wonderful deeds and accomplishments our community has given to the entire world, I am the proud son of Pietro Fortunato Vallone, who is my grandfather is Cologero Giuseppe Vallone, who my son Charles III is named after. In good old 1908, my grandfather Pietro, actually great-grandfather, came from Sicily, and all four grandparents came from Sicily. So we are 100% Sicilian in this house. My wife, God bless her, is Armenian, and my children are half and half. So we have an amazing heritage here. Proud, started from my great-grandfather. And my dad, who was the very first speaker of the city council, Peter Vallone, started the tradition in City Hall of recognizing Italian Americans. And that actually stopped for a while. And then I came in, and I am sadly the last 100% Italian American elected official in the city council. So we keep that tradition going. We had been doing it for years, and the crew you're going to see tonight have all been participating at City Hall, have all received rewards and recognition for that. So we're very proud that the Queens Historical Society is doing tonight's event. And remember, it's a fundraiser, so let's help keep this great institution going. So anyone tonight, I don't even know if they know, but we pledged $500 from ourselves to tonight's event to help keeping that going. So I urge everyone else to get on board and do that. We must preserve our cultural heritage and the pride that we wear on our sleeves. And you'd be happy to know we just finished 3 o'clock pasta dinner Sunday at the house with my parents, with my in-laws, with the brothers and the sisters and everyone that's coming on over. So the tradition is alive and well, and I have no leftovers, so don't come on over because everything's gone. So with that, I'd like to say you have some wonderful performers tonight, and so stay tuned for the hour with us. And again, so I'm Councilmember Paul Vallone, proud to be an Italian American, proud to be the son of Peter Vallone, proud to continue the tradition, and you will hear and see the lovely voices and faces of Italian Americans tonight. Patricia and Maria, thank you for putting this together. Jason for being president, and Branka for being a great executive director. The whole crew is here tonight. And a special, I guess, moment of silence, but a moment of celebration for Joseph Brostick, one of our trustees of the Historical Society who passed this year, past president of Broadway Homeowners Association, dear friend, and always carried his heart on his sleeve. We lost him this year. But with that, join us for a wonderful celebration of Italian American culture and pride. And I turn it back over to the amazing ladies this evening. And you get to see my cousin Annette Vallone with Landrum School of Dance too. So that's all good. God bless everyone.
Much, Paul. Paul, Vallone was always the name I associated with Italian-American culture. I remember your dad very well. That's how old I am. And now okay, now I have the opportunity to introduce a famous authority and author from Queens and the president of the Queens Historical Society, Jason Antos. Jason?
Okay. Patricia, thank you for the introduction. Councilman Balone, it's great to see you as always. So I want to welcome everybody to tonight's event. This event is something a little bit different that we're doing for the Historical Society. Although we've had fundraisers in the past and great events, this is the first time that we're doing such a thing virtually via Zoom because of the times in which we live. But despite what's going on, we're very happy that everybody could gather here for this great event. Our salute to Italian-American heritage and to see the beautiful artwork by Claire Stokolosis. This event is one of many events that we have here at Queens Historical Society. We are known for our great walking tours and our great exhibits, of which we have some really exciting stuff coming up at the beginning of next year. Just to quickly go over what we're doing, we'll be doing next year a salute to two photographers from Queens, Frederick Weber and Percy Loomis Spear, who were photographers who chronicled the development of Queens in the early 20th century. Some of these photos have rarely been seen, and we're going to be proud to bring this to you sometime in 2021. Daniela Adamo, who's our archivist, is co-curating the event with myself. We have done wonderful walking tours, and most of the tours that we have done during this year have been virtual. And I'm glad to say that they have been a success. So with that said, Queens Historical Society will always be here to help educate the Queens community about its amazing history. And we are going to continue providing that service for the community despite what's going on. So with that, I'd like to wish everyone good luck tonight. I want to thank everyone for contributing and donating. And as it was mentioned, this is a fundraiser, so please give as much as you can to help us. And you can guarantee that we will always be here to provide educational resources to all those who are interested in learning about the beautiful history of Queens County.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Italian-American Heritage of Queens fundraiser. Also, soft launch of Il Paese Vecchio exhibition, and art talk and sale with artist Claire Stokolosa. We're benefiting us, the Queens Historical Society. My name is Branka Duknic. I'm the executive director of the society, and I will be providing you a very quick insight into our organization's mission. Our mission has remained the same for over 50 years now. In an ever-changing borough that continues to undergo widespread development, the Queens Historical Society researches, records, and showcases issues that have had a profound impact on the history of Queens. As a repository of collections, the Society documents and preserves the history and constant changes that continue to shape the borough for the education and enlightenment of its more than 2 million people. We were founded in 1968 as a nonprofit organization, the largest and most active historical society in Queens, with a borough-wide scope and impact, promoting and providing assistance for research into all socioeconomic aspects of our borough. QHS owns and maintains the Kingsland Homestead, a late 18th century structure that is honored as being among the first New York City landmarks in Queens County. It is located in historic Weeping Beach Park in Flushing, Queens. We also own and maintain partnerships with local grassroots community groups on the landmarked Moore Jackson Cemetery in Woodside, a rare surviving colonial era family burial ground and farmstead from around 1733. Historical, cultural, and artistic aspects of the borough are explored through exhibitions, outreach programs, including lectures, panel discussions, as Jason mentioned, walking tours, and concerts. We offer a catalog of history-related publications available for sale, also online, as well as other items of historic and cultural interest. We publish a quarterly newsletter, as some of you know, which during COVID pandemic has assumed a form of an electronic newsletter due to high printing costs. Today, we are offering programs geared to a range of ages from elementary school students to senior citizens. In addition to changing exhibitions, a period room displays furnishings of the Victorian era. Nurture your love of history with our virtual reality visit to Kingsland House. You can actually go on our website and see the virtual reality tour. Or if you'd like to explore in person, please schedule a pre-scheduled time, and we have all the necessary health precautions for you to visit. We are honored you could join us tonight with a list of accomplished artists, scholars, and community leaders. Thank you so much, Councilman Vallone. Please consider donating to help preserve the legacy that QHS continues to build in documenting the amazing diversity of Queens County. Grazie mille. Thank you, and I really hope you'll enjoy.
Hello, my name is Jaron Halfpap. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator here at Queens Historical Society. Queens Historical Society is dedicated to bringing you lectures, tours, programs, and exhibits all about Queens. To accomplish this, we need your help, especially during the challenge of COVID, which has severely affected all cultural institutions around the world. We thank you for your support by coming to today's fundraiser, but we'd also like to encourage you to continue your support. When you donate to us through PayPal, the link is in the video description, and we'll also post links into chat. You can also include a message and get a shout out. It'll look a little something like this. These donations can be of any amount, and your payment will be secure through PayPal. We need your assistance to continue being a leading borough-wide organization. QHS is the only historical society impacting all of the borough's 15 districts. In the past 50 years, we have continued to offer satellite exhibits and programs to underserved communities, seniors, immigrant communities, and public school students. To accomplish our mission, we are meeting the cultural needs of audiences in each and every community in the borough. Whether at the major visitor venues such as LaGuardia and Kennedy airports, Queens Center Mall, the New York Hall of Science, or in local senior centers, schools, libraries, parks, and more. We strive to be accessible to all. Your support ensures that our free or nominally priced virtual programs during COVID are translated into 4 world languages and are accessible to all, regardless of their race, gender, or ethnicity. Your support will ensure that our museum continues to grow and thrive in the post-COVID world. Make an impact. Help us preserve and protect our valuable heritage, and help us document our histories by serving the vulnerable populations. Consider long-term support by visiting our website and becoming a member. Enjoy all of the benefits of free admission, gift shop discounts, and more. Help us preserve and protect our rich and multicultural history. We hope that you enjoy the rest of tonight's program.
For a historical society, we're up to date, and we've got a fantastic family. You've met 2 or 3 of them so far. You've met our president. I'd like you to meet another member of our board of trustees, who's the chairperson of the beautification committee, Maria Becce. Maria has joined the board this year, was on our advisory board, and thank you, Maria, so much for being the one to make Queens Historical and Kingsland's area so much more beautiful. My next introduction will be for a person who is the president and chairperson of the Italian Heritage and Culture Committee. I think this committee might have started in the 1977s, right after maybe the bicentennial. I'd like you to meet Joseph Sciammi.
Good evening. And again, congratulations for tonight's wonderful program by the Queens Historical Society. I could not be more proud. I'm the grandson of 4 Sicilian grandparents who came just about 100 years ago and who made their way in America with great families. Today, I am the president of this Italian Heritage and Culture Committee that's celebrating each October since 1976. So Pat, you're only off by a year. And we were founded by Dr. Angelo Gimondo, a famous school superintendent who is now well retired, living in Jamaica, Queens. We've continued all these years, soon to be our 45th anniversary in 2021, where we'll be celebrating a great deal. This year, the theme is about Federico Fellini, 100. Would have been his 100th birthday. Next year, we'll be celebrating the 800th celebration anniversary of Dante. So we have great themes each and every year. Of course, this year is a different year. When I saw my good friend, Paul Balone, I thought of all the many times that we celebrated this annual function in City Hall chambers, and God willing, we'll be able to do it again. The Vallones and Joseph Sciammi have something in common because our great-grandparents came from a little town in Sicily called Versailles. It's in the province of Palermo. So our roots are very common and together, and Paul's father, Peter, is a very good friend of mine for many years. I also bring you tonight greetings in a short few minutes from St. John's University. St. John's University, where I serve as Vice President for Community Relations. We try to do a lot of outreach, and I'm going to offer tonight a contribution from the university and myself. So eventually, you'll be getting something in the amount of $500 from us, from me and the university, in recognition of this very special anniversary. St. John celebrates its 150th this year, and we're a strong part of Queens history. So my best for tonight, I'm looking forward to all of the speakers, and Claire in the past has been honored by the Italian Heritage and Culture Committee at the annual Borough President's event just a few short years ago. She's an incredible artist, well-known, well-respected, and to all of you doing this wonderful work, keep it up. We need history. We have to hold on to it. We cannot forget the past. So again, God bless you all, and let's have a great night.
Good evening and congratulations to the Queens Historical Society and to our councilman, Paul Vallone, for the celebration of Italian culture and language. I am honored to represent La Scuola d'Italia Guglielmo Marconi, which is the only Italian bilingual school in North America that spans from preschool all the way through high school. And our main goal is to preserve our wonderful Italian language and our very rich cultural heritage. We are an institution in Manhattan, but we have students from Queens, from the other boroughs. It is an honor for us to be here and to help you celebrate. Our students, just like we are having this meeting tonight on Zoom, all through the spring have had lessons online. They are now in person. And when all these restrictions are over, I want to invite every one of you to come and visit our wonderful school. How are we linked to Queens? Well, I lived in Queens for 50 years. So I have a great affection for it and we are so close. So again, a big welcome and thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maria. I just love to hear the Italian language, even when you're speaking English. It sounds so terrific. It's music to my ears. And when we're speaking about music and dance, we can go to the Landrum School of Arts. They're going to have a video performance. We ready for that, Joan?
Nails, hair, hips, heels, face done, lips real, purse full, big bills. Yes, I'm a big deal. Legs, face, eyes, thin waist, thick thighs. You, me, you wish. New phone, who this? Patty pat pat, sugar gum gum gum. Mommy, yes God, then you pop that tongue. This whole club is my runway run. Y'all 5, 4, 3, 2's, I'm a one. Girl, what did that girl just say, girl? Girl, I don't dance, I work. I don't play, I slay. I don't walk, I strut, and then sashay. But I don't work for free. That's not the tea, hunty. So make it rain on me, and I might let you see. What you gonna let them see? My nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels.
My nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels.
Head, shoulders, knees, toes, don't touch these clothes. Face, lips, eyes, nose, camera, click, we pose. Beat, mug, limp, wrist, VIP list. Wave, blow a kiss. I'm the one, sis. Left, right, left with a spin. Where's my session crown? Cause I win. I'm so fab, I'm gone with the wind. Y'all 6, 7, 8, 9, 7, 10. Girl, what did that girl just say, girl? Girl, I don't dance, I work. I don't play, I slay. I don't walk, I strut, and then sashay. But I don't work for free. That's not the tea, hunty. So make it rain on me, and I might let you see. What you gonna let them see? My nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels.
My nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels.
Okay, dolls, y'all know what time it is. Come on, I don't want to see you dance. I want to see you work. Come on, drop for me, drop for me, drop for me, drop for me, drop. Pose for me, pose for me, pose for me, pose for me, pose. Now twirl for me, 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 twirl. Now snap for me, snap for me, snap for me, snap for me, snap. Now clap for me, clap for me, clap for me, clap for me, clap. My nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels.
My nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels, nails, hair, hips, heels.
That's all.
Oh, okay, now we've talked about music and language and history, and we're going to have a sneak preview with Daniela Adamo and the exhibit that she's preparing.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniela Adamo, and I am the curator and collections manager at the Queens Historical Society. My segment is titled Il Paese Vecchio, Italian Americans in Queens. So for those of you who don't know, Il Paese Vecchio actually means the old country. So this will actually eventually be turned into a physical installation next year with a lot more content. So I will be sharing my screen with you so you can see some of the pictures associated with what I'm talking about. So this virtual exhibition features the unique stories, traditions, immigration history, and culture of mostly but not limited to the large Sicilian and Napolitan population who lived in areas such as Bayside and White Zone. The content I will be focusing on are experiences that span generations, from the Italian immigrants to their children. Programs associated with the exhibition will highlight the linguistic diversity and nuances of their dialects in collaboration with the Endangered Language Association. So the history of Italian immigration to America. So although a wave of immigration from Italy started in the 1860s, it wasn't until the years between 1900 and 1920 that the United States, mostly New York, received almost 2 million Italian immigrants, most of which who came from southern Italy. In New York during 1910, Italian immigrants were mostly employed as laborers who worked on the subways, skyscrapers, and various structures. Famous immigrants during the 20th century included precisionist artist Joseph Stella, who lived on Crescent Street, Astoria, and comic book artist for Disney, Don LaRosa, and the painter Frank Stella. Many Italian immigrants settled in the Lower East Side, Manhattan, tenements, and various towns in Northeast and South Queens. This is just a painting by Joseph Stella about depicting the Brooklyn Bridge. And you could see how he implements some old world Italian elements from Italian art from the past. And this image looks more like a stained glass window than it does of a realistic depiction of the bridge. So overcoming discrimination. So during the early 20th century, Southern and Eastern Europeans were faced with discrimination. Italians in the early 20th century didn't fit in with the constructs of white and black, but were placed in the concept of in-betweenness. Even the Irish, when they first arrived much earlier in the 1850s, were disenfranchised, but later assimilated and projected the same discrimination they faced on the new Italian immigrant. Aurelio Palmieri, a prominent Italian-American Catholic writer, voiced his discontent in 1923 that the Irish considered Italians to be of another racial origin. Italian immigrants began to fight for equal treatment through social reform weekly meetings, and Dr. Antonio Stella, the brother of Joseph Stella, was a huge figure in uplifting the Italians' morale and perception through his treatise, Some Aspects of Italian Immigration to the United States, published in 1924. And you can still find this book in the library. The book discusses the significance of political, economical, and social conditions for Italian immigrants during the 1920s. Consequently, at the same time of the Emergency Quota Act of 1921 and Immigration Act of 1924, which banned all Southern Eastern Europeans, including Italians. Although Antonio Stella was a doctor, he was thoroughly involved in the Italian community living in New York and was strongly passionate about the injustices infringed on his community. His book extolled the brilliance of Italian culture, its contributions to society, and of course the great periods of Italian art, such as the Renaissance and the Baroque period. So Italians in Queens. Towards the end of the 19th century and well into the 20th, Italians had immigrated to New York City from mainly locations of southern Italy. In particular, about 3.5 million had immigrated to the United States from the small Sicilian village of Castrofilippo, with the majority of immigrants centering themselves in Queens. Upon the arrival, these Italian immigrants have been known to organize and maintain communities from their particular regions or villages so that they were able to continue local traditions, celebrate feast days, and even help each other find work. This practice not only has and continues to shape culture within their communities, but also often characterizes neighborhoods within the boroughs in which they settled. More recently, however, due to the immigrants having aged, as well as immigration from Italy slowing down, the communities once flooded with immigrant and first-generation Italians have assimilated to fit in with American culture and practices, ultimately constructing cultural customs now known as and belonging to the Italian Americans. Areas in Queens such as Ozone Park, Howard Beach, Bayside, Whitestone, Fresh Meadows, and Ridgewood still have a large community of Italians. Today, 58% of New York is Italian. Here are some immigrants that came around the late 20th century from Italy. These are actually the grandparents of Claire Sacolosa, who will be speaking about her art in a later segment. So Italian cuisine in Queens. So many restaurants and supermarkets in Queens pride themselves on selling and making authentic food and often made fresh or imported. The most popular types of Southern dishes and desserts, particularly Sicilian and Napolitan, are caponata, pasta con le sarde, cassata, sriglioli, arancini, cannoli, and chickpea dishes such as panelle. So caponata is actually an eggplant dish. A lot of Sicilians put eggplant in their food. Pasta con le sarde has sardines in it, which is why they put sarde in the name. And cassata is a really delicious cake. This is a photograph of it, and it's native to Palermo, or at least it's very popular there. And arancini means orange. So the actual dish looks like big oranges since it's a large orange colored ball. And on the outside it's breadcrumb, on the inside it's risotto, ground beef and mozzarella. And a lot of times you would put cheese and tomato sauce on top. This is panelle. Panelle are the chickpea fritters, or patties, if you will, that are in the image, and you fry them up in oil and put some lemon on them, put them in a bun, and they're very delicious. Very simple to make as well. So I will present some conversations from interviews with Italian immigrants who were excited to share their story. So the first one is an interview I conducted with my father, Giuseppe Adamo, now 60 years old, who immigrated to America from Palermo, Sicily in 1966. On December 10th, 1966, my father was only 6 years old when he came to America and his family on the Christopher Columbus boat. Like many immigrants, his family came for economic opportunities which weren't available in Sicily at the time. Illegal activity by the mafia was preventing progress, and the region subsequently became corrupt and poor. My father expressed that it was always his dream to come to America. He was excited to go and experience a new land in a new continent, and for a young child, it was an adventure. My grandfather arrived first in order to secure work and sponsorship to require a visa until he was able to bring the rest of the family to America. So my father still remembers the night before leaving Italy vividly. He stated, "The day I found out, we were all excited. The night before, I can remember we were in the piazza. My father told us, he put us on his shoulders. When my father first told us, he put me on his shoulders and we walked down the piazza happy and full of joy. The journey was long, about 30 days. The seas were rough, and Giuseppe remembers holding onto the rail because the boat started to rock and some of the furniture began to slide. People were getting seasick as well as my father. When they pulled up into the Brooklyn Pier, he remembers it at night. He said, I could remember being overwhelmed by thousands of white lights from the buildings. I'll never forget that. We drove to our house in Whitestone, a community already filled with Italian immigrants. And along the way, there were so many buildings and houses. Coming from a small town in the mountains, I was overwhelmed by this. He had a great long career in telecommunications. He was able to build a life for himself and our family. My mother is also from Palermo, Sicily. It was a small town and they knew each other since childhood. My father said to me, I'm very fortunate for the life I've been able to create in America. I still live in Queens and recently have purchased a house in the mountains upstate. It's special to me because it reminds me of my home and the mountains in Sicily. I now look forward to retirement in this country that has become my home. And of course, I still miss my home country and try to visit as often as I can. My father finally became a naturalized citizen in 1977. However, he's maintained roots in Sicily through my grandparents, cousins, and many aunts and uncles who still live there. My father is still very proud to be Italian. Giuseppe expressed other sentiments as well. He said, "What I expected was a more family-oriented hometown feel. However, living in New York City, I soon noticed it was a separate life. There was a sense of isolation in the city. When I would go back to Sicily, I was reminded that everyone in the neighborhood was related and knew each other. And you lose that sense of community when you live in New York, though Queens communities do foster a communal feel. I'm so grateful for living here. However, home will always be Sicily, not to mention the wonderful cuisine that we have that my wife continues to preserve, as well as our traditions." My father says, "Immigration means searching for new opportunities, learning how to live with a variety of different people, experiencing different cultures, lifestyles, and cuisine, as well as all the different modern conveniences that are afforded in certain places in the United States that we don't have in the small towns in Sicily. To be an immigrant is also the idea of feeling like an outsider but inevitably assimilate. However, you never lose that feeling of being an outsider. You always feel like you belong somewhere else. You do feel, however, that you are part of a new place that you're living in. You feel like something is always pulling you back to where you came from, always having the hope of going back, but you can never recapture what you lost. It becomes a nostalgic dream. However, on a light note, the benefit of being an immigrant is being part of two worlds, the old country and the new." These are images of my grandfather and my grandmother who came to this country around the 1960s. So the next interview I conducted is with my mother, Giovanna Adamo. She's now 55 years old, who immigrated to America from Palermo, Sicily in August 1973. She naturalized in 1988. When explaining her experience, she stated, "I came here on a plane when I was 9 years old. I remember my two brothers and I were very excited about going on an airplane for the first time. Knowing that we were going to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, although it was an exciting thought, it was also very scary. I remember it vividly. I had a lot of friends and cousins in Italy and was sad about leaving them in my small town of Duknic. Some of my school friends threw a bon voyage party for us. I remember hanging out with them for the last time. I was excited about traveling to a new country, yet sad to leave my home, cousins, and friends." Her father had already traveled to New York 5 years before the rest of the family came here. He later brought them to New York to live in Corona, Queens, and all be together again. He too traveled for the opportunity for employment. In Sicily, jobs were scarce, and he was able to build a new life for them through economic opportunities. Giovanna says, "Since I was a very young girl, the only expectation was the idea that it wasn't a challenge. I was too young to imagine any challenges that could have arrived. I was excited to experience new land and make new friends with different cultural backgrounds. As a child, I didn't have many expectations. There definitely was a challenge and fear of learning a new language, which I struggled with for the first few years. I felt like an outsider wishing to belong to this new environment. Politically, Italy had an unstable economy and government. The mafia was at large, the government was not strong, and the people were struggling to get by and make ends meet. Then there were challenges with organized crime trying to control the community. Although her relatives came to the airport to send them off, wishing good luck and giving their blessings. She said the flight was 8 hours. Sometimes it was bumpy because of the turbulence. But the airplane stewardess gave me an Alitalia pin and I wore it proudly. I explained, for me, I still have my pin till this day. I also enjoyed eating airplane food and the snacks they served. It was the first time I ever had a ginger ale in my life. It was sparkling delicious since we never had it in Italy. The arrival was exciting. When we arrived to the airport, it was immense. There were so many people in many nationalities. It was pretty strange and different to experience so many different people and nationalities. I remember arriving at night and being enchanted by all the lights, watching from the airplane window, the New York City lights, and being completely mesmerized by it. As a small child, it gave me a feeling of hope and wonder. My mother loved her country. She loved being around all her relatives and friends. Giovanna always loved Italian cuisine and culture, as well as the friendly faces when she gathered at the piazza. In describing Sicily, she said, I loved the small community and going to church every Sunday. You could hear the church bells, so beautiful, and I remember frequently getting gelato at the town's ice cream parlor and walking around the park called Giardino. She was somewhat disappointed when she started school. It was very difficult to adapt to a new culture, and making friends was a challenge because of the language barrier. However, as a young child, she was able to pick up the language quickly. Giovanna was put in a bilingual class and was able to learn Spanish and still speak it fluently, which has served her well for many years, knowing 3 languages: Spanish, Italian, and of course the Sicilian dialect. Her hope is that her children, myself, my twin brother, and my younger brother, thrive and have happy, prosperous, and healthy lives. She also hopes that we maintain our Italian culture and never forget our roots. To Giovanna, immigration means new opportunities to meet and embrace new culture and learn different customs, new people, new food, and embracing all people that contribute to the wonders of America. A very similar opinion that my father has. She keeps her traditions and customs by keeping the culture alive, such as cooking Sicilian and Italian food, and maintaining contact with religious traditions and always speaking the Italian language in the house. Staying in touch with relatives in Italy, visiting often, teaching her children about Italian traditions has always been important to her. Like other interviewers, she feels that she has the best of both worlds, being an American and being an Italian. And this is an image of my mother's family in the 1960s, a little bit before they came to America. So another anecdote provides a story slightly different from Giuseppe's, but mostly similar feelings that both my mother and my father had felt about America and being an immigrant. So my aunt, Lenora Greco, is now 56 years old, and she came to America when she was only 9 years old on November 10th, 1973, from a small town in Bari, Italy. She too left due to the corruption and poverty with a weak political system. America presented opportunities and a better life for her family, a common reason for immigrants seeking the American dream, as well as my father and my mother. When her parents first broke the news of this new venture, she explained that she was actually terrified to leave to an unknown country, yet excited at the same time. She didn't know what to expect, except for the stories she learned about New York and others who had visited or immigrated to. Coming from a small town in Italy, where everyone was warm and knew everyone with a strong communal feeling, America first seemed cold and isolated. New York was a bustling, crowded city with people and tall buildings. Eleonora's family first settled in Corona, Queens, and this town helped ease her into new surroundings, since there was a sense of community with many Latin Americans and Italians eating Italian ices, the famous Corona Ice King, and playing bocce ball. She expressed that she built a great life for herself in New York. However, she still keeps strong roots in Italy by visiting her family every year, cooking Southern Italian cuisine, and keeping her traditions alive. Lenora has also grown to love the United States. At the end of the interview, she expressed that she's also proud to be an immigrant because she could be both Italian and American, just like my father and my mother and many other immigrants that I've spoken to in the past. So this is a picture of her family and her siblings that came to America. And these are some of her cousins around the same time that she immigrated in the 1970s. This is an image of Eleonora's hometown, Bari. And this is, of course, the famous lemon ice king Corona, which I'm sure many Queens residents are very familiar with.
Hello and good evening. My name is Maria Restivo Becce, a second-generation Italian-American, trustee of the Queens Historical Society, and lifelong resident of Queens. My husband Willie, our son Matthew, live in the historic neighborhood of Broadway, Flushing. But I was raised in Astoria. What a fun childhood we had, making the friends that we still keep near and dear. Being raised an Italian-American was icing on the cake. Or should I say, we enjoyed the best home-cooked meals in town. I recently had the great opportunity to have a conversation with my godson, Damiano De Gioia, a first-generation Italian-American and proud resident of Queens. Damiano's family story actually begins with my grandmother, Maria Cinquemani Restivo, who sponsored Damiano's uncle to leave Sicily and come live in New York.
I remember as a kid the stories of Uncle Sal coming to America. And when he did come here, he came on a Friday, and by Monday he was already working in an asphalt crew with your grandpa. And at that point, about a year into it, he met our Aunt Anna and ended up getting married. He sponsored my mom. She was the first one to come on his side of the family. She came in 1967. She ended up staying with him and his family on 45th Street between Broadway and 34th Avenue. At that point, they sponsored the rest of the family. So my grandparents came over, the Brucaleris came over, and the other Cinquemanis came over, and the Petalinos came over. So by the 1970s, there was a whole bunch of people here. Now, during this, I remember when I started school, I went to Most Precious Blood in Astoria. I didn't even speak English till I got to kindergarten because I grew up on 44th Street, and everybody on the block spoke Italian, and we were all pretty much immigrants. We didn't know if we were living in Astoria or we were living in Sicily. So with time, the entire rest of the family ended up coming here. There's not many people ended up staying in Italy because everybody was sponsoring each other. So everybody settled in Astoria at that point. We all went to different schools. Who went to St. Joe's in Astoria, who went to Most Precious Blood, some went to PS 70. So we all in the neighborhood. Everybody stayed in the neighborhood, and we all lived near each other. And every Sunday, we'd all migrate to Grandma's house. We'd be flowing out the doors because there was probably 30 or 40 of us at that point. But every Sunday we had to go to Grandma's house, which was a great experience because we'd all get to see each other, talk about what happened that week and who's doing what, who's helping who with homework. And then we all moved on to high school. Most of us stayed in the neighborhood too at high school. Most of us ended up we started in Monte Cristi, went to St. John's Prep, went to Bryant, a few went to McClancy. Even though our parents didn't have an opportunity to go to school, they made sure that we all worked hard at school, because it was so important to them. Like my dad used to always say, I only went to 5th grade, but I wish I could have stayed in school, but he had no choice. He had to go work on the family farm back in Sicily. Then we moved on to bigger and better things, college. Many of us went to St. John's, actually. And some of us became lawyers, some of us became bankers, some of us became teachers. Our parents were so honored about that because some didn't even know how to read and write, and not because they were ignorant. It's just they never had the opportunity to go to school. And they were so proud that we accomplished what we accomplished by going to school. That's the reason they came to this country, to make life better for their children. Many times today we get together with all our cousins who are now, some are grandparents, some are parents, and what we reminisce about is how all this started from one person calling, sponsoring my Uncle Sal, and bringing all of us together here. And with the values they taught us of family unity, hard work, respect each other, the neighborhood. Talk about how we almost all have remained in Queens. We continue to raise our children in Queens. Some are raising their children in Queens. Some of them end up going to the same schools we went to. And the bond that we have with Queens, the sense of loyalty that we have to Queens, is just in my heart forever. We all seem to say the same thing. All those great values in me that I'm now trying to instill in my children. I think growing up in Queens, the immigrant part of Queens gives you the strength to really go out there and try to be a better person and know what it's like. The American dream was there, and the American dream is still there. Thank you. Thanks to Queens Historical Society. Thank Maria. And especially thank Grandma Maria planting that first seed here that all the rest of these seedlings are growing on. Thank you.
Isn't that the joy of growing up Italian? I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Joseph Sciammi and St. John's for their generous donation to the Queens Historical Society. Thank you, Joe, for starting our pot. Well, we were talking about Paul Vallone saying that he was the last Italian in City Council. And then that got me thinking about how many people are still speaking languages. And there is an alliance founded in 2010 for the Endangered Languages Alliance. And we will have a video, and the host is Ross Perlin, who's the co-chair of the Endangered Language Alliance.
Hi, I'm Ross Perlin, co-director of the Endangered Language Alliance, based here in New York. Almost all of Italy's substantial linguistic diversity has at one time or another been represented in the New York area. Today, despite significant attrition, individuals, families, and some communities in and around the city, in some cases have maintained ways of speaking that are all but lost in Italy itself, where Italian, based on an erudite Florentine variety of the 13th century, has become increasingly dominant. While many of the first New Yorkers in the mid-19th century were speakers of Ligurian, Piedmontese, and Tuscan varieties, the overwhelming majority have been Southerners who spoke forms of Sicilian, Neapolitan, Calabrese, and Pugliese. Each of these is in turn an umbrella term which encompasses a broad array of very different varieties as well, spoken across those regions. Given that less than 10% of the population spoke the national language, Italian, at the time of unification in the mid-19th century, it's not surprising that those who came to New York, in almost all cases, were speakers of these usually not mutually intelligible dialetti, or dialects, again, really in many cases separate languages, and that most Italian New Yorkers coming at that time only learned Italian later, if at all. Diversity and clustering were the norm in all of the city's major early Italian neighborhoods, with a form of Neapolitan spoken apparently as a common language among southern Italian immigrants. Little Italy and Greenwich Village were a crucible, but patterns were highly specific. For example, Sicilians, especially from Sambuca, would live on Elizabeth Street, Neapolitans and Calabrians on Mulberry, Genoese on Baxter, Tyroleans from the far north of Italy on 69th Street by the Hudson River, and so on. The first Italians in East Harlem, the next kind of major area of settlement in the city, arrived apparently in 1878, reportedly from Pola in the province of Salerno, and settled in the vicinity of 115th Street. Later, there was a Barese, or specifically Pugliese, community on East 112th Street, a group from Sarno, near Naples, on 107th, Calabrians on 109th, immigrants from Basilicata between 110th and 115th, and soon after, Calabrians, Campanians, and Sicilians, many of whom were involved in constructing streets, railways, and the Croton Reservoir, started settling in the Bronx. So in many cases, it was very much street by street, building by building. Important areas of settlement for second and third generation Italian Americans, as well as post-Second World War migrants, who usually brought both the dialetti and Italian, were much more likely to be in Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, and numerous New Jersey, Long Island, and Westchester suburbs. In Queens today, large Italian communities with substantial numbers of speakers continue to flourish from Astoria to Bayside to South Ozone Park, with several hubs in between. Linguistically, Italian communities in Queens show both similarities to the rest of the metro area, larger Sicilian and Neapolitan language, including Cilentano and Irpino communities, for example, as well as a familiar pattern of shift to Italian and to English as the generations. But at the same time, in Queens, there's an additional remarkable degree of diversity. Some of the city's smallest and least known Italian language communities have deep roots and an organized community life in the borough, including Nones speakers from Val di Non in Trento, in and around Ridgewood, Friulian speakers in and around College Point, Molesan, Abruzzese, and Istriotto or Istro-Veneto speakers in Astoria, Southern Lazio speakers, Ciociaro speakers, that is, from living near Douglaston, and many other communities. So the Queens Italian linguistic world is truly remarkable.
Allora, adesso i tirolesi dicevano in soc. Il soc era che c'era 2 o 3 uomini che si fatti bene in construction. E lavorava a fare le subways. E erano di tutti a lavorare con i subways. A lavorare con i subways e dopo io ho cominciato col Verrazzano Bridge. Mio zio, che è morto 2 o 3 anni fa, aveva 94 anni, la lavorava al Verrazzano Bridge. I nava d'accordo, era tutto in scema. E questi 2 o 3 uomini ha sempre portato i tirolesi a lavorare, perché diceva che quando lavorava bene e noi tiravamo via per niente. Non andava per coffee breaks. Era sempre a lavorare. E ci ha portati avanti le famiglie, che le famiglie adesso
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am Maria Becce, a trustee of the Queens Historical Society, and welcome to the greatly anticipated art talk and artwork sale by the acclaimed artist, Claire Stokolosa. It is a rare opportunity to introduce someone you've known almost your entire life, who shares a similar background of being born and raised in Astoria and believes as passionately as I do about giving back to the community. Although we have taken different paths to accomplish our goals, Claire and her family share many similar experiences as my family. While viewing her collection, I was struck by a particular painting depicting 4 generations of women. I have often spoken over the years about the privilege of having my great-grandmother in our lives and recalling numerous family photos of 4 generations posing for communions, graduations, and other fun family photos. That painting clearly spoke to me and will soon be on display in my home. During tonight's fundraiser, Claire has graciously and generously offered to donate 20% of sales from her collection to the Queens Historical Society. More information will be provided at the conclusion of Claire's presentation. Before we hear directly from Claire, it gives me great pleasure to make her blush by singing some of her praises. Claire is an accomplished and acclaimed artist, both in the United States and internationally. She specializes in art that invites the viewers to communicate through an anthropological study of people moving through life, from New York City subways to Europe's town squares. Her solo exhibits are featured in New York and Italy. Claire drew early inspiration from living in the shadow of the elevated train, the L, in Astoria, being inspired by the light and sound and traveling across the bridge, pursuing her journey as an artist at the High School of Art and Design and later at Hunter College. Riding the subway and traveling across the bridge from Queens to Manhattan. These were inspirations in her subway series and artwork depicting the famous bridges of New York, particularly the 59th Street Bridge, now the Ed Koch Bridge. Clearly, we are not alone in acknowledging Claire's artwork and her mentoring of art teachers for the New York City Department of Education. Among her many accolades, Claire is a recipient of the Italian American Heritage Award presented by Queensborough President Melinda Katz. In accepting her award, Claire spoke about keeping her Italian heritage alive by painting Italian scenes, studying the Italian language, and being a member of the Italian American Women's Center. Not forgetting her roots, Claire reminisced as a child, sitting at the kitchen table watching her mother make homemade pasta. To keep her occupied, she gave Claire some pieces of dough to make little sculptures. At 4 years old, that was the beginning of her art career. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce internationally acclaimed artist, Claire Stocolosa.
Grazie, Maria. This is so touching. I am honored to be a part of this fundraiser and to share the evening with guests. I want to thank everyone at the Queens Historical Society and my assistant and video editor, Ava Wisnowski, and my publicist, Marianne Busso, who helped make this possible. Also, thanks to the Italian American Women's Center and President Vincenzo Russo for nominating me for the Italian American Heritage Award in 2019 for my contribution to the arts. In this next half hour, I will be sharing images along with my inspirations about my artwork, and in between, there will be 5 short videos with guest appearances. And it is my pleasure to be available afterwards for any questions about sales and follow-up by email, or text, or call me and leave a message. Have a pen and paper handy. My contact info will be on the screen. And thanks for the sales that came in so far. Being Italian shapes my art and my life. I grew up in a household influenced by my Italian American mother. Bridge. I'm going to start with my linear painting of the 59th Street, Queensborough, or now Ed Koch Bridge. I've always had a fascination with bridges. They are pathways. This painting is done in my linear style. Notice the open lattice type pattern. I will refer to it later. This portrait painting that we'll see next in acrylic on canvas was in my solo exhibit, Le Donne, which means the women. The collection of paintings captures women in their various relationships. And here is an oil painting done on paper of a woman on her wedding day. It's based on a photo of my mother and captures the classic 1950 image of a woman looking into a mirror to her future. Notice the lace. I placed a piece of lace on the page and used it as a stencil. Then I continued the pattern by hand. This brings me back to the lattice work of the bridge. It has an open pattern style. What I saw in my surroundings, architecture, bridges, fire escapes, the L, which is the elevated train, and handmade Italian lace, all played a part in the imagery that I capture and influenced my work. I was always fascinated with sunlight and how it reflected on the surfaces and created shadow and patterns. My mother was a first-generation Italian American. She grew up in the Bronx, in a house on the water, across from Queens. The windows faced the water. I wonder if she ever imagined that after marrying my father, my dad, she would move to Queens, where I was born and raised, and continue to live and have my art studio. And in a portrait named Look. Here is a portrait of mother and child. I named it Look as the child is looking out at the world, so curious, with eyes wide open, while the mother is focused on the child. I also call this study in opposite colors, green and red. As I create my portraits, the color and shapes influence the composition as well as the subject matter of mother and child. Which brings me to Bountiful Basket. Here's a painting from a still life series. We always had big parties and celebrations with plenty of food when I was growing up, which leads me to my first video, this one with my husband, Joe Calvaca, and here we go. Joe.
Yes.
Hi, just want you to say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Great, thanks for joining us today. What do we have going on here?
We're doing some experimentation, making two sauces today. We're going to make our own homemade with our Cento peeled tomatoes and some paste and some onion and some garlic. We'll do a little more garlic.
What are you making besides sauce? Full screen? Because I'm not seeing it full screen.
Meatballs and some sausage.
Oh, looking great.
I got onions for the meatballs that are diced up. And I got this to go for the sauce. Fresh ingredients for the sauce.
I love the smell of basil. So nice. Some oil in there, some olive oil. You know your way around the kitchen.
Mama raised me right.
Sunday sauce. Thanks.
Every Sunday.
I feel like we could do a little dance to that.
That's enough dancing. We're doing the homemade sauce, and then we're doing the Rouse sauce. So if we cannot taste the difference, we no longer have to make homemade sauce.
Oh no! Come on! Oh no! What?
More ingredients to go.
Okay.
So just getting it a little bit worked.
We got our two sauces. Do you know which is the real one?
Yeah, easy.
I know. That's the real one.
That's our sauce.
So thanks for joining us in our kitchen.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Bon appetit. I don't think you're going to get any of my meatballs, but maybe you'll get a painting.
And this is the homemade.
Pretty good.
This is the homemade sauce and meatballs. I'm sure it's delicious.
I guess I'll have to have second so I can, taste the other one.
Hi. I hope you weren't hungry watching that. So here we go, moving to the painting Sauteed Onions and Garlic.
Okay. Close the door. No, it's no.
Okay, here we go. This painting, Saute Some Onions and Garlic, is from my Stay at Home series. It was on display in a virtual show by the Plaxall Gallery in Long Island City. Okay, and we are going now to a hilltop town in Tuscany. I did this from a sketch based on my morning walks there. Walking in the day and evening still are such a large part of Italian life. When I look at this image, the image of the man walking his dog, it brings me back to the movie, The Wizard of Oz, with Dorothy and Toto too, walking to Emerald City. The cypress trees frame him and lead him on a path. And now more food, pranzo, which means lunch. This painting called Pranzo means lunch in Italian and reminds me of Sundays. When I studied in Florence in college, I remember walking, it was Hunter College. I remembered walking through the streets on Sunday, hearing muffled conversations, clattering pots and pans, and aromas that reminded me of my childhood in Queens. It was familiar and moving and made me feel comfortable because I saw how much Italian culture stayed alive in my family traditions when I was growing up in Queens. And then Pause per Café. This is a painting. We have to always stop for our coffee. So this is a painting from one of my favorite spots on my morning walks in Cortona, Italy. It's done in my linear style. Of course, after a walk, one has to stop and relax. Halfway along my walk, I would often stop at Cafe Torrioni for a cafe and cornet. Once in a while, a neighbor would go jogging by and ask, why was I sitting there? Why wasn't I exercising? But we need our coffee, right? It was nice to chat and catch up in the morning with others. And fruit, we have to stay healthy. Healthy, fresh fruit, colorful, interesting, organic shapes in affordable small paintings that can be displayed individually or as a collection are some of my recent works. The pause led me to a new beginning as an artist. New York shut down in March. My art studio closed. Now what? I carved a little studio space in my apartment where I continue to paint, capturing my thoughts and processing them and putting them onto video. While self-isolating, I'm sharing my paintings in a series called Stay at Home on social media and on my YouTube channel, CSR Claire Stocolosa. You will see an example of this work in the next video with Darlene. Hi, Darlene. Great to see you.
Great to see you, Claire. I'm so happy to talk about what you did for us.
So I see you have that painting behind you that I did for you, but I recall we connected over a smaller piece.
As you know, we go way back. The beginning of this past year, I was doing just some cleanup and refreshing in the house, and I was going through a drawer, and I came across the painting that you did for me in Florence. Gosh, it seems, probably over almost 30 years ago. I hate to to say it, but I've always loved it. I saved it. I showed my daughter. She loved the painting. She was really interested in where I had gotten it and why she hadn't really seen it before. So, and I said, I've lost touch with Claire. It's been so many years. And she Googled you and she happened to find you. And that's kind of how it all came about, that we reconnected again. And I was so happy that we did.
I remember doing that. It was the Pension Rigatti. I think it's an expensive apartment building on the Arno now. But yeah, that was a great place. That was fun.
It was. It's been a cherished piece for a long time, for sure.
And then we did get to reconnect. And I remember you mentioned you wanted to come to Long Island City to come to my studio. And then all of this happened with the virus, but we were still able to communicate.
I wanted to come up to see you. So we had a huge expansion of the house. Slowly, I kind of shop and look for things that I want, and I hadn't quite found anything. So that was the purpose behind kind of coming to see you.
I know you were watching some of my videos, my stay-at-home videos.
Right. I really enjoyed during our quarantine time being able to see what you were painting. That was kind of the inspiration behind wanting something in my kitchen. After seeing some of your kitchen and food paintings and the inspiration, I really thought this would be a great time to see if you would paint something for me that was really, kind of more tailored and designed to what I wanted, to the color scheme and so forth. So I really enjoyed what you did there, and it was awesome.
We went over the size of the space you had in your kitchen, and we talked about color. And I was excited that I incorporated the piece from Cortona, which is actually where we met. Thank you for listening, also taking my advice and trusting me. I hope it's working and you're enjoying it.
Absolutely. After being able to send you some pictures, giving you some FaceTime video where you could see exactly kind of what the kitchen looked like. Every time, I come every morning and make coffee. Really, the life of our home is in the kitchen, so everybody really has an opportunity to enjoy it. And the more you look at it, you find little details that I didn't see before. That's really what makes it so special. Really what my vision was for that, because it isn't a particular spot in my kitchen. I really left it up to you and your vision, and I just kind of gave you some ideas. And it was perfect. You can see it right behind me. The color schemes just blend in beautifully with my kitchen and to a kind of inspire conversation. And, I went with your recommendations on the darker frame, which was perfect. The sizing was perfect.
I really appreciate it. I'm glad you're enjoying it with your family and that you invited us all here to see your home. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Darlene. And speaking of Florence, when studying art in Florence through Hunter College, I stayed in the quarter near the Church of Santa Croce. It was in the center, but yet with it was a little quieter and had a neighborhood feel to it. So Santa Croce, this is a painting I did on site in plein air. I love to paint on location outdoors. The striking bright pastel colors of the marble facade stand out in the piazza. The marble detail looks like sugar icing on a cake. You can see the original facade on the right side with its natural earth tones and rough surface. The colorful marble was added in the late 1800s to the original structure, which was consecrated much earlier as a Franciscan church in 1442. I actually spoke with my friend, Alexandra Bernabe, tour guide and art historian who lives in Florence, to get her view on my images of Florence. She pointed out that Santa Croce is unusually ornate for a Franciscan church, excusez-moi, Notice the Carrara marble in colors of pink, green, and white. Look closely at the top. There is a giant blue Star of David. The Jewish architect Niccolo Matthias from Ancona designed the church's facade, working in a prominent Star of David into the composition. Santa Croce is rich in art and history. It has many interesting stories to explore. In this next image, there is a photo of a statue and my painting, which includes the statue. The statue in the Accademia Museum was originally attributed to Michelangelo as a Pietà, and now is thought to be the deposition of Christ from the cross, and the artist is not clearly determined. It is a beautiful and moving masterpiece, nevertheless. I remember sitting at the Accademia with my sketch pad out, taking a little break, when I saw a mother standing looking at the statue and the child looking out at the world wide-eyed. I had to record it in my sketch pad, and I knew I wanted to make it into a painting one day, which I did, and you can see on the right. There is so much interesting history about the sculpture, enough to make a movie. Thanks, Alexandra, for filling me in. And here is the painting, Madonna con Bambino. I painted the mother's dress with colors that symbolize the Madonna during the Renaissance, blue, red, and gold. I used yellow for the gold color. My thoughts was to capture a modern day version of the Madonna con Bambino and just juxtapose it against the statue of a similar theme. And now sketching. This next work is a self-portrait called Sketching, drawn on the New York Times in charcoal. It's different from my previous because I use symbols for a self-portrait with my signature bangle bracelets. Here they are. And now a comparison. Sorry, I have my notes here. So now we're back in Queens. In this image, I'm standing in front of a painting called L. The elevator train provides another pathway, a theme like the bridges. Let me point out the detail of lattice work, which is reminiscent of the lace in my earlier painting. On the right is a photo of me standing in front of the kiosk across from my studio located at Studio 34 LIC. Paintings from my New York City Faces series of people on the trains were displayed on more than 1,700 art on link kiosks throughout the 5 boroughs in 2019. These paintings bring me back to days traveling with my dear friend Irene. We took the subway from Queens to the High School of Art and Design. Hey, hey, my art and designians out there, in Manhattan together each day. And now close up of the bridge in primary colors. This is a small watercolor painted of the 59th Street Bridge, which we crossed. We remain friends today, and you will get to meet her now.
This painting is a product of the amazing magical connection Claire and I have. It's actually from one of 2 pictures I sent her in a Christmas card. Claire just so happened to choose the one of Franco and I. She started sketching it on a canvas one day. I just so happened to call that same day with all of it in front of her. She said, "Oh my God, what timing," and explained that it felt powerful and it would portray a special image for a show she was putting together, Le Donne, the woman. I feel like a powerful woman and blessed with the strength needed in the intensity of motherhood for my special needs son. Nothing was definite till completion. Claire captured our eyes that reflect and connect our hearts and souls. So I was honored that she did choose this painting and put it in the show. I not only purchased the painting, but met Claire at her framer, and we picked out this gorgeous frame together.
When I was selecting the picture, when I saw the image, and I knew I was preparing for this show, Le Donne, to show women, and which was the purpose of the show, was to capture women in their different roles. So while there were men and boys and children in the images, lovers, husbands, sons, there had to be a woman in the scene. And when I saw this photograph that you sent, it just was so moving. And I felt it transcended not only your connection with your son, but I felt it was such a powerful image, the way you holding his hand, the way he's looking out, which most children, no matter what age, they're usually looking out and their moms have a grip on them or are looking at them. And it just really spoke to me. And I'm so grateful that you allowed me to use the image for the show and that it went into the show and that you wound up with it. It's really wonderful. This next painting is a scene of friends around a table. They were very animated, having lunch and just enjoying life, as you can see in one of the men's faces, where I capture his image in 2 points of view. I have both angles, and it has a kind of Picasso-esque look. If I could dare to say and make the comparison, well, he influenced me. Growing up and going to school in New York, I had the Museum of Modern Art and the Metropolitan in my backyard, where I was able to study the great works of art. And now chit-chatting from my New York City Faces series depicts a young girl chatting with a friend on his cell phone, which, while traveling on the subway. Modern technology allows us to stay connected no matter where we are located, which brings me back to Cortona, Italy. The Piazza Garibaldi. I love capturing life around town. This is Piazza Garibaldi in Cortona. It is also known as Carbonara, where the townspeople would buy their coal and heating for cooking many years ago, for heating and cooking. My friends in Cortona were inspired by my linear paintings of life in New York City, my New York City faces, and wanted to adapt the style to Italy. Here, Monica and Peter describe that process. Here we go. Hi, Peter and Monica. So good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah, great.
So I see you're in Italy. How is it?
It's good. I must say we're very impressed that they're managing the COVID situation over here.
And I must say, before we carry on, Peter and I both feel very privileged to be part of this fundraising event for the Queen's Historical Society Museum.
We had this property developed by the pool, and all we had was white walls, and so we were keen to have some art, but also we wanted to be done by local artists. And so because we got to know Claire, and because Cortona's got to know Claire over many, many, many years, she's deemed to almost be a resident of Cortona. So therefore, we'd seen the New York faces, and we thought, well, it'd be great if this could be Claire's room, is how I christened it. And so we bought one of the paintings from the website and consulted with Claire as to what else she might have to fill what is quite a large space behind us. For us, it was great because we're a small village outside Cortona. So the scene of people on a Sunday relaxing, having a drink, having something to eat in the town of Cortona just brings Cortona back to the small village, if you like. So that worked very well. I always remember you saying you had a sketch which is quite small, and you said, oh, I can make it bigger. I can make it bigger, Peter. And you went away and it came back and it was bigger. So yeah. I don't know what magic took place there.
What I do is I use this process that I use for my New York City faces while working, and I want to keep the freshness of the drawing because I could redraw it, I could rescale it, but I keep the original ink drawing and I enlarge the black drawing onto watercolor paper and then I paint it. So it has that freshness, that spontaneity of being there. I work from my drawings that I do on site, and I had this one that I just felt would be perfect for the space. I love this process. I enjoy doing it. I get lost in it when I'm painting.
When we got to know you, Claire, I decided to explore your website and saw whatever else you did. And one of the things that really caught my eye was a picture you'd done some time ago. It was a meal just having finished, and there's a young girl just left alone on her own there. And she's just observing the room, and not that I was a little girl, but it brought a memory of my childhood. And also very Italian in the sense, what would have been lots of people sitting around the table having a long chat and speaking to each other. There's a very good side story to this painting because Monica's got a niece called Sarah Rose, and when everybody sees this painting, they say, "That's Sarah Rose. Is that the reason you bought it?"
I want that to happen with my portraits. That was actually a painting that was in Landrum, a show that I did of women in their different roles. And I wanted everyone to relate to what was happening, more of an anthropological study. I wanted people to see themselves in those roles. I'm glad for the happy coincidence, and I'm glad, Peter, that you related to the painting as something from your childhood. I wish we could see each other for lunch. Always wonderful. Say hello to your family and cheers.
Good day.
See you next time.
Stai attenti. Ciao. We have shared some wonderful times together, picking olives for olive oil and having great dinners together. This is a close-up of a sunset, or tramonto, in Italy, a scene depicting an enjoyable evening, so wonderful. So whether you're sitting out with a cocktail or in the next scene, being in the garden, planting and picking herbs and vegetables, or painting, it is all about enjoying life and enjoying each other. This photo of me painting in my studio was taken on a photo shoot by Matt Dutile. I selected it to show you the size of some of my New York City faces. I have moved to large studios over time. As you can see, I need the space. I also work in different mediums, watercolor, acrylic, oil, and like to have many various workstations set up ready for me to start painting. I am presently in my third studio space, and I have a story about that. I was fortunate enough to meet the artist Faith Ringgold in 2006 at a NICADA Art Teachers Conference. She was being honored as Artist of the Year. I stayed for the book signing and I asked for her advice. How do you do it? She told me, just keep going, keep working on your art. I met her again last year at ACA Gallery where she is represented. I showed her the book that she originally signed for me in 2006. I told her a little about how she inspired me. Reingold, now in her 80s, asked me, how many art studios have you had? And I said, I'm on my third. And she was like, well, that's good, that's good. It was exciting to have the chance to speak with her. Showing you my studio, I had to tell you that story. And now we're in Woodside. Hey, we're in Queens, as I sit here in Bayside. This painting is called Woodside on the right in. It's one of the drawings from my sketchbook that I drew on the way to my studio. You can watch a video of me completing this painting on my YouTube channel, CSR Claire Stocolosa. And now I would like to introduce Janine and Billy, art collectors and friends. They are originally from Queens and have traveled with me on my art career journey. Here they are. Hi, Janine and Billy. So good to see you.
Good to see you, Claire.
Yeah, hi, Claire.
You guys, you look great. And I like that couple behind you, too.
Yeah. Well, these are something that, as you know, we bought from you as part of your collection. I think we were at a party or something at one point. You showed me some of the paintings that you were doing and they're on your cell phone. I love these too. And you said, hey, they're available. But I was like, hey, I'd love them. So I guess we went to the website and we purchased them. And the rest is history. You changed our lives against that day because after we bought the paintings, now we had to change our whole room to coincide with the beautiful colors that are in the painting here. So we had a designer come in and she thought this would be a great focal point of our room. And we agreed. And basically, based on that purchase, we really renovated our whole room based on that.
I'm so happy. You know, I feel wonderful that your designer agreed with your choice and made that the focal point.
Once you buy real art, you don't want to buy those commercial prints anymore. You start to appreciate
a real painting, and it started from there, and we just continued on.
We had those other paintings of yours.
But we love the New York City faces because
Yeah.
we both grew up in Queens and took the subway our whole lives.
And this is an old classic of yours, and we've had this for a number of years. Oops. But we love it. The way we had our room set up before was kind of like a little bit outdated. And what this did was the house kind of like it made us brighten things up and get into like forced our hand to really make it beautiful. You know, that's it.
Perfectly in the area we had, 2 side-by-sides. I love it.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. I'm glad you're enjoying them. I remember doing those preliminaries for those paintings when I was in Florence.
And I had just taken the trip to Florence, so that's why I really loved it so much.
Very nice, nice. You have a little bit of Italy in your house, and maybe we'll meet there one day.
Yeah.
Here I am on the cover of LIC magazine. I was interviewed for an article about an upcoming show. It got published when I was in Italy, and I found out it made the cover. I couldn't help but think of the song from the 1980s called When You Get Your Picture on the Cover of the Rolling Stone, which was a reference to a magazine that covered rock and roll music at the time. I wasn't on the cover of the Rolling Stones, but I'm proud to be on the cover of LIC magazine. The photo was taken by photographer Liza Margulies. And now Solitude. I did this painting on a site in Crocheron Park. I enjoy painting in different parks throughout Queens. Do you see something on the bench in the bottom left-hand corner? Take a close look. It's my watercolor pad, just a little cameo of me. And now the church. The church in the valley is a structure in the wide open space of the Tuscan countryside, whether in a quiet scene in a local park or the sturdy, strong, massive building in the vast valley. Both images offer tranquility, as does the next image on Golden Pond in Crocheron Park. This autumn scene on Golden Pond fits the season. Lamppost. The iconic symbol of a lamppost in the park comes from my morning walks in Queens. I love all the different designs of lampposts, especially the old-fashioned ones. Lampposts offer light and comfort. And self-portrait. This is another self-portrait using an object to represent me. Here, I use my eyeglasses. It's part of a series. So if you see something you like or are looking for something, that don't hesitate to contact me. I just thought it would be fun to add the eyeglass portrait here. The last painting of an abundant basket brings us through to Thanksgiving. Basket with wine. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and a happy and healthy holiday season. Please feel free to contact me after the show with any questions about my art and sales. And I want to thank Maria and everyone at the Queens Historical Society, and to our guests, to all of you out there, and to all of the people who are part of this program for your generous support, and it was great working with everyone. Have a wonderful and healthy holiday season.
Claire, what can I say? That was absolutely fascinating. Thank you so very much. You are truly amazing. And yes, I am now craving either something to eat or to go visit Florence. Thank you. Before I explain to all our guests how to purchase a painting, I would be remiss not to thank Claire's sister, Marianne Busso, for all her professional help and guidance in planning tonight's presentation, as well as Claire's very talented assistant, Ava Wisnowski. Thank you all. So it is easy to purchase one of Claire's beautiful paintings, and she will donate 20% of the sale proceeds to the Queens Historical Society. Just go to Claire's website and click shop at the top of the page, or go directly to Shopify. You can also contact Claire by email for help with your selection or discuss a custom painting. Her paintings make great holiday gifts, and it's important to note the fundraiser offer to Queens Historical Society is effective through December 31st, 2020. Thank you, Claire. Queens Historical Society is enormously grateful for your generous support and proud of your accomplishments. We wish you and your family only the best. I will do my best to say this correctly. Grazie mille.
Good evening, and now is our time to monitor our live chat with all the questions that our audience members have posted. Thank you so much for watching. Before we start the live question feed, I also wanted to share our gratitude for the 3 Italian American organizations that have sponsored us for and during this fundraiser. They are Comitato Trinacria Alcamo, Circolo Santa Margherita, and La Lampara Associazione Culturale Siciliana. But when the first question I'd like to move on with is actually for Claire. Marianne wanted to ask, like, if we purchase a painting as a gift, will it arrive in time for the holidays?
Hi. Well, yes, and I suggest that you put in your orders before Thanksgiving so that it gets there on time. So check it out, and if you have any questions, let me know.
Excellent, great. So we have another set of questions for our curator, Daniela Adamo. There are actually 2 questions, so we'll start with the first one. Daniela, how would you compare the immigrant experience at the turn of the century and the immigrants coming in today? Are there any similarities or any differences? And the second one is, considering how Italians shaped the culture in America and given their significant accomplishments, why do you think Italians still have to face negative stereotypes and discrimination? And does our mission today pertain to preserving the Italian American heritage?
Hello, so those are really great questions. So I'm going to answer the first one. So there are definitely similarities and differences. I think there's more differences now. Sorry. So in the early 20th century, when actually a lot of Southern Eastern Europeans were coming over, but a majority of them were Italian. And when they came over, they were heavily discriminated against, even more so today, not so much. There were a lot of restaurants and different kinds of businesses that they weren't allowed to work at. They had signs banning them. So they actually started working in construction, which we actually see a lot of that today, but it was a little bit different, different regulations. It was very dangerous, but they actually, which I'm very proud of, they really built the infrastructure of New York specifically. But it was definitely a hard life for them. And most of them actually settled on the Lower East Side, which was not a great neighborhood at the time. Also, there was prejudice amongst Italians themselves. So there were some Northerners that came in, and I did a lot of research about this and went through a lot of archives, and it turns out they actually didn't even want to live in the same building as Southern Italians. So there was a lot of this going on, not just with Americans, but their own culture as well. And today, it's obviously not so much like that. We do have more Southerners here, but when they come, they mostly assimilate pretty quickly. There isn't a lot of prejudice. Even growing up myself, things were different. It was weird to other people, the things I ate and my culture, but it wasn't, they weren't really that pejorative against it, maybe in some cases. Sorry, I don't mean to go on a lot, but yeah, the jobs are different now. So I know a lot of Italian Americans, you know, first generation and immigrants in my own family, in my community, that went on to be doctors and nurses. And they've actually now moved on from construction and they work for the NYPD and FDNY and things like that. So, and the second question was about the discrimination and stereotypes today. Yeah. So currently the mafia is still at large in Southern Italy, unfortunately. So there's this well-known scholar on Italian American history. His name is Fred Gardaff. He actually teaches at Queen's College. And he discusses how media, especially famous films and shows such as The Sopranos, Jersey Shore, or The Goodfellas, project a negative stereotype of Italians, oftentimes false. And these stereotypes have become embedded into American pop culture and actually still persist today. So in terms of the negative and often false stereotypes of Italians, many associate the Italian Americans image with pasta, large family, and nice clothes, masculine men, and the mafia. Their identity has been characterized by violence, sexism, machismo, overt sexuality, gangsters, and obsession with abundance, which is portrayed a lot in these movies. And Gardaff actually explains how American television has never been a friend to ethnic groups, especially Italians. And I'm going to end with this. He says that you need stereotypes to tell stories, and there's a fine line between what is funny and what is not.
Thank you, Daniela, and we truly hope to sort of uncover pieces of that in our actual exhibition. We still don't know when and how we'll launch it, you know, considering the COVID crisis and pandemic, but post-pandemic, we plan on to sort of tackle with these topics, as Daniela mentioned. Now we're moving on to a question for Claire again, and more about her upbringing. So the question goes, how has growing up Italian-American in Queens, Claire, influenced your work, and how do you select your subject matter, such as bridges, Italian scenes, and New York City faces?
Well, that's a good question. And I want to say, I think the spirit of it, the openness, the parties and the open door, the open household with people coming and going, and the interaction. As a little girl, I was intrigued by it, kind of listening in, getting those conversations, you know, a lot more. Not everyone was done on the telephone and on, you know, texting. So it's like this open parties and people talking, and you kind of listen. And I was just, made me think about people and life. And I love interacting. I love being with people. I love talking to people. And I miss it now with COVID because, you know, can't really approach anyone or do anything like that. But I do miss that. And I think it was just the open, friendly lifestyle, you know, and the food, but that was just everything, just being around the table, being together, and everyone, the whole neighborhood and everyone, all the different ethnic groups, you know, it's just interesting. It was like lots of fun. It was really very diverse, and growing up in Astoria, and a lot of fun. And I remember as a little girl, my mother would look out the window and she would watch the light, and around 11 o'clock, it depended, like on a Saturday, depended on the time of year, the light would shift and the sun would come to outside of the street. But I watched, and she'd say, okay, you could go out and play. And those were the days when you could just, like, you know, let your kids go out and play. I don't know if people still do that, but I was really little. And I would watch the patterns come through of light coming through the fire escapes across the street, the pattern in the leaves. I was just always fascinated with it. And I think I bring that to my artwork.
That is a truly wonderful experience. And hopefully, families and young people post-COVID will experience the same things that you have, Claire, and many others. And really truly wish that, our program was a program that families were watching while they were sitting at a table on a Sunday evening. We have just a little bit of more time left. So we have a question for Jason Antos, our board president. Jason, what prompted you to document the history of Queens, and how does that influence your work at the Queens Historical Society?
Thank you, Branka. Well, I've been chronicling the history of Queens for about 20 years now. It started when I was in high school, actually, and I became very fascinated with the town that I live in, where I grew up, which is Whitestone. And I wanted to do journalism. So I started to write and cover stories in my area here, and did that during college. And when I graduated from school, I decided that I wanted to write, but to do nonfiction writing. And I just put the two loves that I have of journalism and history together, and I decided to write about local history. And in the past 15 years, I've done 7 books on Queens history. The Queens Historical Society was actually the first historical institute that I approached when I did my very first book on Whitestone in 2006. So you guys were the first people that I went to day one, week one of this venture that I've been doing now for 15 years. During that time period, have been able to collaborate on a lot of exhibits and historical walking tours. And I just currently finished a new book on Douglaston and Little Neck, which is coming out March 22nd of next year. So pretty excited about that. But yeah, I love writing about the local history scene because it's so dynamic and spans so many years. I mean, the 300 years of Queens history, plus there's just been so much that has happened that not only affected New York State history, but also American history as well.
Thank you so much, Jason. We're lucky to have you, and we're very excited for the new book launch on Little Neck and Douglaston coming up soon. So keep checking our electronic newsletters and our website for more updates on that. We have one final question for Claire. Claire, is it really exciting? And describe a little bit the sensation of actually having your studio in a very bustling and booming Long Island City.
Well, I am very, thank you for that question. I am very excited to be there. I'm in Studio 34, and it is actually in a historic building that at the time, way back when, they made wheels or parts for cars. And if you go into the lobby, they have a little bit of the history there. And I'm also part of PRESALE, which is an artist space and center for all the arts, and that's in Long Island City. And that was PRESALE was an industrial building, as many of the buildings were in the area, and it turned into a space for art. So a lot of these buildings have changed over time. And I was really my backyard because I was growing up right there on 33rd Street. So I feel like I'm back home in my studio, and there's a lot of history to it. And yes, a lot of artists. Noguchi had a studio there, and now it's a museum. So there were many, and as Daniela, I'm sorry, I was thinking of the artist from Florence, the architect, sorry about that, when Daniela was mentioning that there were artists that settled, Joseph Stella, which I thought was really interesting, that lived in Astoria on Crescent Street. So I think many early on, a lot of pioneers that really became famous were staying in Astoria and had their studios there. So I feel I'm following in their footsteps, and I hope I keep on going.
Yeah, thank you so much, Claire. And we truly, truly hope to hear from you soon on any upcoming projects, after or during the holidays. And hopefully, with the pandemic ending, we get to see your work live exhibited at any of the venues of Long Island City and beyond. Yeah, so this concludes our Q&A, and I'd like to just invite our audience to actually check our website and visit La Scuola d'Italia and their bilingual programs and the amazing work that they're doing, as well as the Italian Heritage and Culture Committee with their Federico Fellini's 100th anniversary of his birthday celebration. So there's a lot of very exciting things at both organizations. So please monitor their progress and thank you so much.
Consider ourselves very lucky to have such a fantastic program. Thank you, everybody, for contributing. This heritage of Italian culture is just right down my alley, and it's time to eat. So please, everyone, stay safe, be well, and good night.